All right, let me just get the screen happening and we'll get some audio for everyone who's joined so you're not sitting in silence. Oh. Already. We will give it a few more minutes to let others filter in and we'll probably kick off a couple of minutes. Throw some nice ambient music in. If you've just joined us, welcome. We're just waiting for a few more people to filter in and then we'll kick off a couple of minutes past 12. Oh.
It's hard to hear the music.
Okay, let's get stuck in. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to the 2025 State of Shipping webinar. I'm your host today, Shauna Butcher. I'm Head of Marketing here at Shippit, and this is my favourite time of year. I'm super excited. We have just launched the second edition of the annual State of Shipping report, and over the next hour, we are joined by a star-studded lineup to unpack the findings for you. As I touched on, we are together for an hour, and in that time, we'll take you through a bit about the why. So why do we produce a report in the first place? We'll cover the extensive research that informs the findings that are produced in the report. Of course, we'll cover what those findings are, and we'll also have a good half an hour or so where our panel speakers will discuss some of those findings and the implications on their business and the broader retail industry. So on that note, I will introduce our speakers. Today, we have Rob Hangozada from Shippit, Laura Doonin from Neat Consulting, Kristen Mumm from R.M. Williams, Ben Cook from New Store, and we have Nicola Clement as well from NJC Consulting and Advisory, but ex-Adore Beauty and Maya. So definitely some heavyweights on this webinar. Before I hand over to Rob to take you through the background to the report, I just wanted to cover a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, Q&A. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar and throughout the panel discussion, please add them into the Q&A section within the webinar screen. You do also have the ability to upvote questions. So if there's a question that someone else has asked and you really want that to be addressed, please upvote it. That'll help us to prioritize. There were also some questions that some of you submitted when you actually registered for the webinar as well. We do have those on hand, and we'll make sure we address as many of those as we possibly can. And the other note to call out is that after this webinar, we will share a copy of the 2025 report with all of you via email. So you will have a copy of that PDF to read through in more detail and share with your peers and anyone you would like to within your organisation as well. Okay, on that note, I'm going to hand over to Rob now.
And just mute yourself.
All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me well here. I have the great privilege on taking us through what the state of shipping actually is. So I'm Rob Hangozada, joint CEO and co-founder of Shippit. And as I like to say, one of the longest serving employees here in the business. So great to see some familiar names who've popped up to tune in today. And, you know, we call this a bit of a labor of love here at Shippit. You know, what is the state of shipping? It is really the question that drives all of us here at Shippit. And it underpins every meeting and every decision that we make, every product launch, every platform update. But it's a question that we really can't answer succinctly. It's why we had to release a great, big, meaty document, which you will all have access to post this call. And everyone else in the market will get to see it tomorrow. So you've got nice early access. So thank you for joining. The answer is complex, nuanced, and it's always evolving, right? We try and answer it as best we can, and we've done that this time around by looking at a bunch of different data sources. But you know, if we answer this question well, it'll enable us to better serve you and for all of us to better serve the customer who we all obsess about. And that really is the real purpose behind the State of Shipping report. To provide you and the carriers themselves with industry-wide insights to really help us refine our operations, increase conversion on product page and at checkout, drive retention with customers, improve bottom line profitability, and power long-term growth for businesses. And to paint a clear picture of the state of shipping, we've got to draw on a pretty comprehensive data set, and that gives us the unique privilege to do so, given what we see. And so I'll kind of unpack that for you. So the insights that we get are really gleaned from millions of orders at 4,000, what we like to think are industry-defining brands that use our platform. We hear from some of those brands later, but it's also based on research at a subset of those retailers are the decision makers that represent roughly 1,000 shipping locations all across Australia. So we've tried to get a really good cross-section of insight for everybody on this call and jam that into one report. We've also this year done something quite new, which is speak to carriers responsible for actually making the delivery of hundreds of millions of deliveries every single year. It's also based on qualitative research and quantitative research. So hundreds of consumers, which we actually conducted alongside equities research firm Jardin. And ultimately it draws on the entire supply chain, retailers, carriers, and shoppers. They're not separate groups, but are all interconnected, trying to figure out all the different jigsaw pieces of the same puzzle. So obviously when we make decisions in retail, we make decisions in sort of the carrier world, all these decisions tend to impact the end customer. So it's important to dissect this in the right way and paint the full picture for everybody here on the call. So obviously what we saw from AI to local commerce and international shipping, from delivery costs to returns, sustainability, the report should really become a critical asset for brands who will help us define the next stage for what we like to see as innovation and excellence in this market. But before we get into it, it'd be remiss of me not to highlight those and thank those that helped make this happen. And it wouldn't be possible without the support of our partners and some of the defining names in the retail space across Australia. And that includes New Store. So thank you to Ben and the team. Humi, thanks Mirelle and the team. Doc Collective, Uber Direct, Athos Commerce, and Stock In Store. So in our mission and in the mission of our partners to really shine a light on the state of shipping, what did we find? So we'll talk about a few key findings from the report, and we won't go chapter and verse, but what we're going to show is that the cost of delivery is rising, but not exclusively. We've actually found a bit of a surprise this year. We're also going to highlight the rise of what we like to call local commerce here at Shippit and the growth in new fulfilment models. We obviously talk a lot about centralization and decentralization models, so we'll unpack what that actually means and what we've found. And we're going to shine a light on how your peers are actually investing in the year ahead and what that investment means for business. But first, as with all things shipping, cost. So for retailers, unit economics are obviously top of mind. Just as households are thinking about budgets and spending for everyday Aussies and Kiwis, we should really start here. In 2025, it should be no surprise that delivery costs continue to rise, but only marginally and not exclusively. So the average standard delivery cost in 2025 was $10.39, up from last year's finding of $10.26. So whilst modest, we're still seeing a decent increase in delivery costs playing out. But meanwhile, consumers are paying on average $14.69 for express deliveries, which is a small increase from $14.24 back in 2024. For our friends across the ditch in New Zealand, we're paying slightly less for both forms of delivery. And in standard shipping, they're spending about $9.70, while Express is setting them back around $14.10, and that's in Kiwi dollars. But not all forms of delivery are actually getting more expensive. And as you can see from the right-hand side of the slide, we're talking about emerging shipping practices, and that is what we talk about when we refer to same-day shipping. And that's dropped by almost $1 from $18.26 last year to $17.39 this year. So it's quite a dramatic drop considering all other delivery costs have actually gone up. But if we even cast our minds back to 2018, the cost of same-day delivery was $31. So why have we seen such a monumental shift from that $31 to $17.39 this year? Well, demand for same-day delivery is growing. The modes of delivery in same day is actually shifting. So we saw the emergence of on-demand. We've seen the emergence of sort of batch delivery in the space. And we're seeing the market really get a handle on this new delivery experience that's being normalized by Amazon. So as more and more on-demand carriers enter the market, more competition is created. And as demand from consumers grow, we also expect these same-day costs to continue to drop. And the more it does, the more appeal will grow at the expense of express delivery, which seems quite logical. There's something that ties into this, though, which is really about the fulfillment location. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing is this rise of faster delivery speeds becoming the ultimate version of convenience. And for many, being able to guarantee a delivery same day rather than in a 1 to 3 day region of express delivery is really being seen as worth the incremental cost of that $3 extra or $2.50 that we've kind of seen play out. And we're seeing the volume of same-day deliveries powered through our delivery network in 2025 also increase. It is a mixed bag on delivery costs. The access to free delivery doesn't really paint a pretty picture for consumers. So as shipping costs have increased for retailers, the quest for sustainable retail economics persists, which means that retailers offering free delivery has fallen consistently. So what we can see here is that from 2018 to 2024, the percentage of retailers offering free delivery fell from 81% in 2018 to 70% in 2024. And that's marginally adjusted down to about 69%. In New Zealand, meanwhile, 68% of retailers offer free shipping. The threshold to qualify for free shipping is about $123 for Aussie shoppers and 116 Kiwi for New Zealand. Complimentary free shipping is a bit of a rarity in both markets, and it's only offered by around 4.8% of Aussie retailers and 6% of Kiwi retailers. But could change really be in the air? Let's find out. When we asked retailers what they were investing in over the next year, a third of you said free delivery. And this suggests there could be growth in the offering to counter global players who have bucked the trend, winning share with fast, free, and reliable delivery. So the squeeze on local retailers is actually becoming a lot more obvious as it's normalized in the minds of the consumer that shipping is that one thing that no one needs to pay for, but always needs to be perfect. So unfortunately, that's our lot in life in retail. But should retailers continue to absorb the costs or pass them on to the end consumer and risk losing market share? Either way, cost reduction in shipping is key to facilitate that strategy. And that's obviously what we tend to obsess about. But as we shift from the mode of delivery, so thinking about where fulfillment happens, let's talk about the rise of local commerce. And this is really what we're seeing as reshaping consumer expectation across Australia and New Zealand. Increasingly, shoppers want convenience without the wait. And what we have seen is where retailers are offering fast, free, and reliable shipping, they are the ones that are increasing their market share because shipping becomes an afterthought from the transaction and no longer the differentiator as it normalizes. And what we're seeing is, the driving demand for same-day delivery, click and collect, which represents certainty for the end consumer. But obviously, proximity to customer becomes critically important. And that's where Ship from Store comes in. These services are no longer the nice-to-haves. They're becoming the necessities. They're powerful levers to drive loyalty that turn stores into mini fulfillment hubs. It improves convenience and brings retailers and shoppers closer than ever. We often talk about the stat that 15% of all deliveries on our platform are only traveling about 15 kilometers from origin to destination. But that doesn't often follow with the way that a parcel will travel. But if we can connect local inventory with local demand, we're seeing this as a great opportunity for retailers to reduce their delivery cost, improve the speed of delivery, and offer the flexibility that customers are really seeking today. So let's talk about that in the context of different fulfillment models. As we see demand for speed and convenience intensifying, more retailers are actually unlocking their store networks, enabling same-day and on-demand delivery. Delivery is half the battle, fulfillment is the other half, and this is where operations, culture, and enabling technologies comes to the forefront. And what we have seen through our research is that around 1 in 5 retailers, or 20% in Australia and New Zealand, are investing in Ship from Store capabilities in the year ahead, which is quite good to see. But hybrid fulfillment models are actually beginning to emerge. We're seeing the proportion of retailers who ship from store increasing, but at the same time, a growing number of retailers are actually reducing the number of stores that they ship from. So not every single store needs to be a fulfillment location. We're seeing a return to some form of centralization. It does give rise to this balance needing to be struck between high volume distribution centers that can work 24/7 and benefit from automation, but also trying to contrast that with unlocking store-based inventory and continuing stock throughput at a store level. But rather than seeing this as a binary choice, it is really about how retailers leverage both. Whilst we see that warehouses are really efficient, they're not as close to the customer. So there is a bit of a trade-off. But to unlock the full arsenal of inventory, we've seen that around 14% of retailers are already embracing what's known as endless aisle. And that is a trend that we've kind of anticipated to surge in the coming years. Endless aisle doesn't just encapsulate e-commerce originating orders. It's also orders that could originate in the store environment, but it takes full advantage of store-based inventory. It brings about a renewed focus on unified commerce, something we'll unpack in a little while, but obviously allowing retailers to offer their consumers a wider range of stock and improve fulfillment and delivery times as a result. We're seeing this strategy requiring a bit of a new way to manage inventory planning, operational efficiency, and also seeing retailers that are more than doubling their digital sales tapping into their in-store stock. Finally, before I hand over the controls to the spaceship to Laura, I wanted to highlight investment. So on the next slide, what we understand is that retailers are investing across a variety of different things, but understanding what they're doing is crucial, as it helps us look into the crystal ball a little bit and think about what their intentions and strategies are for the months and years ahead. So it's incredibly important for us as we plan our product development here at Shippit. But in 2025, the top investment for around a fifth of all retailers is supply chain optimization. That covers both fulfillment and delivery. I know we tend to talk about the state of shipping here as it's the most important thing, but we do see it as the last battleground for retail in driving conversion and increasing loyalty with customers. Obviously, this has become a notable jump from 2024, where it was the fourth most common investment priority. It's shot right to the top now. And it reflects that growing recognition that delivery is really important, and it actually has a significant impact on the customer experience, which underpins key metrics of acquisition and retention. As was the case in 2024, real-time data analysis was the top priority for around 16% of retailers, though that dropped from first to second in 2025. AI and automation was the prime investment focus for a further 16%. And what these investments reflect is a focus on tapping into data that enables retailers to make mission-critical decisions based on insight rather than just gut feel and intuition or we've always done it that way, so that's the way we'll keep doing it. That forces more conversations around the table to involve more teams in retail, and we understand that complexity. Inventory accuracy and visibility, omnichannel strategies, and unified commerce technology were also common focuses this year. But today, just 1 in 3 retailers say that they use delivery data to optimize their operations, to reduce their costs, or to improve the delivery experience, either all the time or often. So I think that's a really important point. For 2 in 3 who do so sometimes, rarely, or never, they're leaving insights and dollars on the table. You don't grow what you don't measure is the old adage, and we're big believers in really measuring this in the deepest way possible. So speaking of insights, it feels like an appropriate time for me to hand over to a group of people who collectively possess the sharpest insights in Australian retail. So I'll hand over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Rob. So amazing. Not just saying this because you've got me on here, but it feels like this is a bit of a playbook that a lot of Australian retailers can go to and really use. So hi, guys. Thanks for that, Rob. For the next stage of the discussion, I'm joined by Ben Cook from New Store, Kirsten Mumm from RM Williams, formerly from Adore and Meyer and now an industry advisor. And I'm Laura Doonin, and I'm a consultant and a technology advisor. So before we jump into the report, I'd really like the panelists to introduce themselves a little bit better than I have. So can each of you, maybe starting by, let's go with Ben first. Ben, can you give a little intro into who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Laura, and appreciate the Shippit guys for bringing this together. My name's Ben Cook. My role is the Regional Vice President of APAC for New Store. I've been with New Store now for just over 18 months. I guess I've been in retail for 20 odd years, generally in technology, everything from ERP, supply chain, warehouse management, distribution, all the way through to digital in more recent years, and now looking at, again, physical retail and what that means for retailers looking to utilize technology.
Cool, and we'll go to Kirsten.
Hey everyone, I'm Kristen. I am the Operations Manager at RM Williams, so I look after our distribution globally. I've been here also for about 18 months, just looking at improvements overall. My background comes from distribution and retail environments in the food industry.
Awesome. And last but not least, Nicola.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicola Clement. I've been working in digital for over 24 years now and in retail since 2009, both domestically as well as internationally. Most recently, I was the Customer Experience Officer at Adore, and before that, General Manager of Omni Experience at Meyer. So I spent a lot of time in customer research, understanding what are driving customer and store operations challenges, a lot of that which is definitely highlighted throughout the report. But the other thing that I also do is run an ecom profitability course, which is also why shipping is very much at the heart of what I like to look at in this world. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, cool. I mean, probably like what you just said there about the profitability, I think that's one thing that really stands out to me when I read the report. I feel like we're kind of landing at a place where a lot of Australian businesses have tried lots of different things, from free shipping to free returns. And now we're landing at a place that everyone's kind of coming back to what is right for our customer and how do we make our business more profitable. And this seems to be, it's great to see that the supply chain optimization is top of the list for the focus and investment for a lot of retailers and brands in Australia. So that was my one of the key takeaways I got from the report. I'd love to go to each of you. Now we've got three pretty different people here. Kirsten, it's really great to have you because you're really hands-on in this part of the business and the supply chain. And then Ben from New Store, really working between that point of sale into that ship from store functionality. And then, Nicola, you've got that broad experience and from your expertise and most recent engagement in Adore Beauty. I'd love for each of you to take, what was one of the main things from the report that really stood out to you and why? And maybe we'll start with Kristen for that one.
Sure. I think the biggest thing for me is that 64% of shoppers said that they wouldn't shop again after a poor delivery experience. It's definitely one of our biggest focuses in when we make an error, if we make an error, how we rectify it and how we communicate with the customer. It's not surprising, to be honest, because as a consumer myself, like if I have a really poor experience, it really does put me off. So it's more mitigating how do we do that better? And how do we learn from our experiences?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that number is really high. So it's 64% of Australians would not shop. They have a poor experience. Like the game's really changed. Tell me some of the things, like what is RM Williams doing to optimise the needs of the RM Williams customer today?
We've just introduced express shipping and gotten a new carrier on board to be able to deliver a better delivery service to our customer, more transparency, more notifications. Really, we're just trying to optimize the experience to the customer, but also to try and mitigate the returns process at the same time.
Yeah. Nicola, I'll pass it to you. What was your key, takeaway from the report and why?
I think it was really interesting to be able to see how all of the research insights and even the analysis of the data that the Shippit team had available to themselves rolls up into some really key industry insights. What I would also take away from that is there is a lot of nuance in each individual business. So while I'm like, this is great to look at as an industry report, it's also really important that you validate those assumptions or insights with your own customer base and for your own business. And this is a great starting place, but the devil is definitely in the detail. And the research that I've done in very recent years across a number of companies, both clients and the businesses that I've worked for, I've seen different nuances of this play out. For example, depending on what category your products are in, or even the demographic of the customer that you are selling to, and sometimes even the channel of acquisition that they are actually coming to you from, can drive certain behaviors. But the key thing that I took out is aligning very much with design principles that I've had for a number of years, even from when I was at Jetstar, is about choice, control, and transparency. And they are the key things you must always give a customer, give them the control to be able to make the decisions based on the information that you can surface to them. And I'm a big believer, if you put the customer in control of those decisions, they will make the decision that's right for them, and ultimately that'll do well by your business.
Yeah, because it's like when you read that free returns has declined, you kind of go, well, why it's declined? Maybe for business reasons. And then at the same time, Rob has stated that there's a lot of people looking to invest in increase free shipping from a competition, or maybe they've just managed to really look at their operations from their business and found the right threshold, the right way to do free shipping effectively for them. I'll pass it on to you, Ben. Ben, from the report, what's that key holistic takeaway that you got from the report?
Yeah, I think, similar to Nicola, there's some great statistics in here, and I think there's a little bit of everything for everyone. I guess through the lens within which I work, I was absolutely surprised that only 1 in 5 retailers are investing in ship from store processes, and that 14% of retailers are thinking about endless aisle. And when I think about the current landscape of retail, especially if you've started as a physical store retailer and you've gone to digital, the majority of their inventory still sits in a store network. And yet they're not thinking about flushing that through, with regards to principles like endless aisle. And then I guess my other kind of takeaway from that is really, what are people doing nowadays to be different in retail? And I think, the lens of this report is really around delivery and supply chain optimization. But from a retailer perspective, and we focus on the customer as part of that supply chain optimization piece. But for a retailer, again, there are certain things that you can do now that kind of really changes the game beyond just putting stock in a store and hoping to move it through.
Yeah.
So I think they were kind of key. I think the other thing for me is, I've worked in this industry for a long time, and Rob's been in this industry for a long time. And every time I see a picture of him, he never seems to get any older.
Yeah. Where is he?
Sorry.
Is Rob there?
He's around somewhere.
He's
around somewhere. There he
I
goes.
can't defend myself there. Clearly I'm not working hard enough, Ben. You haven't seen the greys, yeah.
That's it.
Ben, it's like I've started to play with this concept. It's like physical store rent is a new CAC. Obviously, again, there's nuances to that, but I think it's like, the store network is so is more important than it's ever been in terms of experience, but also what stores can you leverage more for an operational best practice. I think from here it would be really good. I'd love to jump in and ask you a question, Nicola. In the report, and it's probably been around for a long time, this kind of concept of the Amazon effect. So it came through quite prominently, both in the influence of the customer expectation and the way that brands is influencing retailers' thoughts and budget. Is this something that guides the conversations you're having with retailers? Is it still like a conversation you're having, and how has the Amazon effect really penetrated into the conversations you're having and the advisory work you're doing?
I think it's really interesting because for me, Amazon still doesn't come up in a lot of conversations. Shein, Temu, definitely. And the interesting thing for me when talking to customers is I don't think it's Amazon that's actually shifted this game in Australia. I think it's grocery, specifically from COVID. And the number of people who then moved to online groceries, you can get that fast. You can set far more predictability and transparency around when you're going to get your order, down to 2 hours. And you get the nice little maps, sometime tracking, all of those kind of things that you're not getting from other retailers. Somebody recently said that your last great experience becomes your new minimum expected experience. And I inadvertently think grocery is actually the thing that is holding us to a higher account. Now, the other key thing that came up very clearly in a lot of customer research I've done is actually the trade-offs between free, fast, and predictable shipping. And customers are always playing those 3 things off depending on the situation and the context that they are in at that moment. What are they buying? Why are they buying for it? Are you buying for dinner? Are you buying for the week's worth of groceries? Or are you buying for an event that you're going to, this week? Or you're packing for holiday and all of a sudden you realize you don't have a swimsuit that fits and you're leaving on Friday. Being able to know that that item is going to arrive in time or arrive so you can try it on and then go and buy something else in the store if you need to. All of those things are constantly playing out in customers' mind and trading off. Amazon gives them that predictability. And I think being able to deliver on that is the key thing that customers are looking for. And they are the conversations that I'm having with retailers is around transparency of that information. So those customers can make those decisions between free, fast, and predictable.
Yeah, it's even interesting. I feel like the Amazon effect has definitely driven the industry, but it's actually like Uber and Uber Eats has really changed the game. You know, that ability to track and see real time, you know, where's your driver? I think it's like Uber, it's the Uber effect that I feel is prominent right now. And to your point, it's really interesting, and it's the nuances, like this market, click and collect isn't as big yet in the US. And when you look at it, you go, why? And it's because you don't have these massive cars and massive roads and the ability to just pull up at any store and put it in your boot. So it's like, you know, we have to take it to where we are from a demographic or a geography standpoint, and then adapt what works for each retailer individually. So no, I like that, because you're right, grocery has been a massive driver. They've definitely been leading the pack in this market more than even overseas. Kirsten, I think on Ben, I'll actually go to you, Ben, right? Because it's really interesting in the report, and Rob alluded to it. Like, we know that endless aisle, we think about it, I think, first from a digital lens, like how do we get more inventory online so you can buy it? How do we really open up the fulfillment model so that's not just what's in the warehouse, but actually the endless aisle in store is fundamental and for success as well. So from a physical retail, I think we've landed about, the consensus is for brands that have stores is that 80 to 90% of the sales are still going to come from that physical store. But at the same time, we all recognize as digital people that the traditional marketing funnel is gone. Can you talk a little bit about the role of the physical store today and how it fits into that unified retail strategy, and some of the kind of maybe observations or cool things that you're seeing retailers do to really tap into the store network? I think you're on mute, Ben.
That was okay. I think, yeah, look, you know, following on from your comments around Uber, you know, Uber Eats is so successful because it's based around the concept of local. And therefore, if you've got a physical store environment, you know, your way to attack the Sheins and the Temus and the Amazons of the world is actually to start using, you know, your local distribution hubs. You know, when I think about NSR and I look at RM Williams as a great example of this, nearly all retailers that I speak to, when I ask them what their endless aisle figures are, they sit at somewhere between 3 and 5%, right? If you're doing this properly, our average customer would sit somewhere between 16 and 18%, right? That in itself is an extra 14% of capability to sell more stock to customers. And so that concept of NSR that's coming from an in-store perspective really then comes down to where your inventory is, your efficiency to fulfill that inventory, and then the delivery aspects to be able to pick up that kind of last mile piece. I love shopping in RM Williams generally because I take over the till. I go and grab the phones off the store associates. But again, when I was last in there, I bought 2 T-shirts, one of which was in stock, one of which was in stock in a different store. And straight away, I was able to take home the one that was in store and then have the other one delivered. And again, that seamless delivery effect that we've seen channeled down from an online perspective is absolutely now available in store. And if you think about those kind of numbers, if you're doing 16, 17% of endless aisle across 80% of your network, those numbers are equally as big as any of the delivery models that you need from an online perspective. But in order to be able to do that, you need store operation efficiency to be able to kind of conduct and carry those things out, as well as offering, and I think we'll come to kind of unified commerce, but offering the same delivery mechanisms as you do online, being able to provide those to customers in store. If I'm a VIP customer and I want it soon, maybe that's a free delivery that is same day. But then I may have other options which are standard delivery and fast delivery depending on timeframes, etc. So I think, you know, we're now seeing exactly the same principles as what we imagined were available online, now available in store.
Yeah. And what do you think? I mean, you alluded on it. I think was the number 14%. That's that's where we're at of the retailers or the brands from the report cohort that are embracing or moving towards endless aisle. That seems to me like it needs to increase, right? Like that's
absolutely. I mean,
opportunity in that.
Again, I sort of come back to, what are retailers going to do differently moving forward? We've seen far too many sort of large scale retailers with hundreds of stores kind of going out of business in more recent times because they're holding a phenomenal amount of stock count, right, in a phenomenal amount of stores. And we know that retailers, their two biggest expenses is inventory and people, right? And the vast majority of their workforce is in store, and the vast majority of their inventory is also in store. So why would you not use those two assets for the betterment of yourself as a business and to provide a better customer experience at the same time? And that's what I'm not seeing people investing in quick enough.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hefty investment, but I definitely think it's like that 14% number seems low, and an interesting one that we'll watch as it plays out. I want to shift back to Kristen. Kristen, something that I read in the report, I think it was Humi that had looked at it, and it's about this idea about loyalty has now been driven a lot by the transparency and communication and the options offered, to your customer, from delivery estimates, delivery costs, your free shipping thresholds. You at RM Williams, you're pretty upfront on the website with your information. Tell us why it's important for your customer and some of the noticeable business benefits that you've found for your approach to being transparent and really communicative with your customer.
So obviously we know that transparency, it builds trust and it drives customer loyalty. It also reduces the amount of questions that we get through our customer service team. We know that clarity around delivery times and costs and thresholds aren't just a nice to have anymore. It's a consumer expectation that they have all the information available to them. And I think Nicola touched on it really well was like drive them to make the choice on what kind of delivery method that they need and want at the time. We know, so when a customer's investing in our premium product, we want to be able to deliver a premium experience, not just the product itself, but in the service that we provide. And we know that starts with clear and upfront information. So being upfront and transparent, it reduces that friction that you can see at checkout. It decreases some cart abandonments and it reduces that after purchase inquiry as well. Yeah.
So you're really seeing it, I guess it's like the customers benefiting because they're getting all the information they need, but the business benefit is maybe the reduction in returns rate. Like, is there other kind of points you're seeing as success there? Like, so I guess the customer service communication goes down, which is good.
Yeah, correct.
And then the returns rate is coming down as well.
But I think it also opens transparency to their expectation. So they know that if they click express shipping, that we're going to deliver that premium service, being that we want to turn it around as quickly as possible and meet that delivery time frame. And we're constantly reviewing like what are we communicating on our website, as in delivery timeframes, and are we constantly meeting them? And if we're not, we need to be like agile to make sure that we have update information and that we're giving out as much information as possible and to be as clear as possible so that the customer has an expectation that if they select standard delivery, they're not going to be waiting 10 days, but they're not going to get it tomorrow either.
Yeah, well, that was a really interesting point in the report. You've seen what has happened is, let's say the aggregator like Shippit will give the retailer a number like 2 days, and then the retailers or the brands have been setting buffers, And that's been smart, right? Like I think where we've came, the evolution has been, we set the buffers to protect ourselves and also to even surprise and delight rather than disappoint. But now where we're at is you have to constantly be looking at that and readjusting, because now the customer, if they want express shipping, they want express shipping, right? They don't want to wait 5-10 days. They want it really clear. So we have to, I think the buffers have to be streamlined a lot more now. So it's really good to know that that's a constant thing you guys are watching. I'll pivot back. So Nicola, something you said at the start about profitability, you mentioned the word, right, which is definitely a key thing I'm seeing in the market. There's lots of how do people from an operation standpoint improve profit, margin, where can they be more efficient, as well as increase sales. So we know that great strides have been made when it comes to fulfillment processes, but there still seems like there's a long way to go. What role do retailers themselves play when it comes to optimizing the fulfillment speeds and the processes around fulfillment?
I think it comes back a lot to what you were just saying then around the buffers. The actual buffers are usually put in place because of the internal pick pack processes. And that is one of the key things. The report is very clear in what is being done from a technology and a shipping carrier's perspective in terms of being able to increase speed and transparency. What we're not actually getting in most businesses is visibility of the pick pack dispatch time between order being placed and the order actually being items, especially when we've got a growth in ship from stores, the items being taken off the floor so that they're no longer open to sell, and then being able to be dispatched out. More often than not, that is actually the longest part of the entire fulfillment process directly to customers. And that's the part that I find a lot of retailers are not paying attention to. We've done a lot of time and motion studies in the warehouse. When was the last time people ran proper time and motion studies in stores where they're doing pick pack from there? And what is their impact on their short picks and their ability to actually supply the items when they are shipping from stores? And then they've got to build in the processes for once they actually go out 24, 48 hours and find that their item's no longer there, then have to source it from somewhere else, update the customer. Do they even have automated processes to tell the customer that their order has been delayed? Or do they have manual people having to go in and send these emails? All of these incremental pieces are actually also stacking costs. If you're not automating them, and if you're not getting that stock off the shelves or off the open to sell as quick as you can to fulfill those orders, you're actually creating layers upon layers of problems for yourself, also from a customer experience perspective. And I think that it's real important for us as retailers and those helping to advise retailers to actually really be having a key look at that particular part of the journey and what can we do in order to get those orders out faster. And the other key thing actually even comes back further into head office for those that are doing the sales projections, the ones that are actually looking from an e-com perspective. What are we expecting our order volumes to be so that the warehouse is appropriately staffed within ideally normal operating hours, so you're not having to pay overtime or weekend rates, which also then blows your profitability. So it's all a trickle down effect. We've all got to be on the same page. We've got to be better at forecasting. We've got to be better at our workforce planning. We've got to be better at our automations and operations, and before even the carrier picks up those orders. So that's also our key responsibility here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is. It's like I think we've landed at a place where retailers and brands know or should be using, let's say, the likes of Shippit, because it's going to give them the tools to have the information from the carriers in the right way. And I think that what's happening is that retailers are a bit forgiving if it's clear. So communication, that transparency, everything around speed and being able to track if some things go wrong, they're okay with that. We're good with that. I think that's where, Shippit and the likes should be really having a good year, but it comes back into the operations. And one of the big areas, I mean, Nicola, I'm seeing this a lot, is the returns, right? Like returns is a massive, it can almost make or break your P&L and your profit margin. So The report was interesting that we're seeing there's a big question mark about how retailers do returns, how they're using data insights to do returns. It comes back to that operational piece and how they're bringing returns back into the business and hopefully being able to resell them. Now, I know we've only got 10 minutes and I know there is a few questions there, but maybe I think we should go to questions. What do you think, Shauna? I know that
Yeah, let's do it. Is that you? Okay, are we good on the audio? Everyone can hear okay? Yeah, fantastic. We do have some questions, so thank you to everyone who submitted them. But first of all, thank you for all of our panelists as well. That was a really interesting discussion and you touched on a lot of points in the report. So thank you. Okay, good. I'm going to jump in first with the top voted question, which was from Peter Armstrong. So thank you, Peter. As Amazon grows in Australia, how do you see existing ANZ retailers being able to compete with their slick and efficient delivery model? Nicola, would you like to take that one?
I think that there are a number of challenges in that question. The first one for me is actually realizing, is the delivery model the reason that people are choosing Amazon? Or is it range, or is it price? So I'm like, first of all, be clear from your customer base, which is the driver that is impacting that. But in terms of the being able to compete with them, it really is that choice, control, transparency from my perspective, and being able to do business with a company that's trusted. So being able to pick it up from your local post office, being able to pick it up from a store, but for me, being able to return to my local store because I know I can get my money back faster, all of those kind of things, and local service are really important. But for me, it's being very clear on what are the drivers that are sending customers to Amazon instead of you, and it's not always going to be speed.
Yeah, Shauna as well. I don't know, Rob, on that one, I seen in the report, and again, I don't have it right in front of me, but there seems to be, is it same day delivery? The price of same day delivery has decreased significantly. So I definitely think that the all care, no responsibility, like I think the carriers have stepped their game up significantly. Like I really feel the issue we had with Amazon, which was we couldn't compete with their fulfillment options because they had controlled it. I don't think we have that same issue right now today. But again, Rob, you might be better to give a viewpoint in that as well.
Yeah. Look, carrier liability has come a long way from the heady days of COVID. I remember Christine Holgate talking about, the volume of the Suez Canal coming down a drain pipe was really the analogy that was used. And I think we're seeing the complete opposite effect where carriers have invested in capacity ahead of demand, and demand has kind of, plateaued for e-commerce. That's meant good things for reliability. I think what we saw in the report is that delivery speed is getting faster just at an average level. We're looking across all modes. So I think it was 2.2 days last year, 1.7 days this year. I think to sort of meld the 2 points around the Amazon effect, etc., what you find is that there's probably a greater sort of driver in loyalty that we see if you don't have to think about the shipping process anymore. That hinges on reliability. I think about a great local Aussie retailer, and I'll give them a plug, Different Drop, and Adore Beauty, in fact, where you place an order at night, it's on your doorstep by the next morning or during lunchtime, and that's free shipping because the economics work out for those businesses. And that then registers a thought in your head, which says, well, hey, every time I want something and I can trust the reliability of that process, I'm going to go to these two retailers when I think about cosmetics or I think about, wine as an example. But I think Nicola touched on a really important point that every conversation we have with a retailer, they're always obsessing about carrier performance and carrier capability. That pick and pack process, if I give you an example of two retailers I spoke to, one has got it down to an art form where they can pick, pack, and dispatch at the store level within 5 minutes of the customer placing an order. That's insane. Their average delivery to the customer's door is around 38 minutes from time of order when they're using on demand. That proposition sets the customer back or the consumer back $10. Another prominent retailer is operating at about a 3-day SLA, 3 business day SLA on pick, pack, dispatch from store. And they're pushing everything through Express, so it's delivered reliably within a 5-day turnaround period. the customer's already forgotten what they bought in 5 days. I mean, I forget what I buy in the morning sometimes. And I think that is really the part to shine the spotlight on and get the right metrics around the store pick, pack, and dispatch process, because we've done it in warehouses. We're not doing it in store enough.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that? I think one of the other challenges is the insights to the data. I'm like, which system is actually capable of bringing all of that data together? So we talk about omni-channel. I mean, I have a problem with unified because that's all around tech and not around customer, but that's another webinar for another day. But actually that visibility of, if we could actually take the timeframes that are coming from the shipping carriers, and we could actually then predict what is the turnaround in stores for pick and pack and get that out and bring that together and show that dynamically in the checkout, that would be very powerful. But we don't have that kind of technology available to us today, which is why we need to really focus on that part.
It's coming, Nicola. Give it a month.
That wasn't even us.
I think, we spoke to a few retailers earlier this year, and what they said was the hardest thing was understanding if they've got splits in the order. It's a lot easier when you're fulfilling from one location, but when you start to split the order and understand the lag effect, it really becomes problematic. And so then there's that trade-off with how many splits do you want to allow, how desperate are you for the sale, and what really stems from that. And I think it all just comes back to reliability and really getting clear on your data sources and that fulfillment logic flow. So sorry, Laura, back to you.
No, I guess I think that's great, but I reckon we've got 5 minutes, maybe get another question or two in. I'll not talk.
Yeah, let's squeeze in at least one more before we wrap. We have two that are tied equal first, so I'm just going to choose the top one. What's the future of bricks and mortar shopping with the ongoing increase in online platforms, and which industries do you see being impacted the most? I feel like we've touched on that a little bit, but surely there's more to unpack there. Maybe Ben, I'll hand that one to you to kick off with.
Thanks, Shauna. Yeah, I guess, in my role, I speak to nearly every retailer I speak to is in the bricks and mortar space, right? What I think, traditional retail is still, there's a theatre in retail, right? And that theatre in retail, I think, is why people still shop in bricks and mortar stores. They want to go in. We talk a lot nowadays about experiential retail. We talk about conversational commerce and all those sorts of things. We talk about the personal investment that people make in those kind of relationships with their store staff. I can tell you now, when you start hitting sort of mid premium and to luxury, once you hit luxury, everything's still done in store. People love the RM Williams experience because they go into store and it's a really personal shopping experience. It plays to their style and nature. And so that theatre in retail is still very much apparent. And I think, the essence of that is coming through. We've seen lots of pure play retailers in more recent times. Even Nicola's old mob, they're now starting to open stores and store networks. Why? Well, there is a halo effect, and the report does touch on why physical retail starts to kind of embrace or actually add to pure play. But more and more, it creates a presence and it creates a brand association. And I think what's really interesting is this concept of marketplaces and then brand. People are now starting to move back to pure brand association. They're not getting that from marketplaces per se. They're getting it from the brand that they want to work with and trust. And I think that brand exposure is then still really playing to the heart of what physical retail is all about.
Thank you. That was a very comprehensive answer. I don't know if anyone had anything to add to that.
I was just going to say that physical retail is not going anywhere. Yes, we saw a great growth during COVID, but it's come back down, and we're kind of seeing it almost like the COVID spike didn't happen. It's happening on that sort of same trajectory. We watch the overseas markets. Physical retail is still king, continues to. The only thing I would add is that you've got certain categories which are specifically in Australia that Amazon have not been traditionally strong in, that they have now got direct suppliers. Take beauty, for example, where they are taking a greater share in the online share of beauty, but generally at least 75% of beauty is still done online. Amazon might shift that a little bit, or any of those categories that they have not been traditionally very strong in, or had a dodgy reputation around grey label that they are now legitimising themselves within.
Yeah, beauty's definitely going to have a tough year. I think it's coming into it's had a great time, and it's going to have a tough time now. One thing on that, Nicola, as well, and Ben,
We've got to
Yeah.
stop having our internal channels competing against each other, so that we can actually have one business that is competing against the real competitors that are, cutting our lunch. And until we stop having e-com and physical retail sitting in completely different verticals within the business, we're not going to solve omni inside our businesses or external for our customers.
Sorry, Ben, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, the data play for online, right, is we've just been power hungry for that, right? It's like, we're getting instant response. If I spend money and I get web traffic, then I can tell my boss that, there's an ROI to that. Whereas actually the creativeness of driving traffic in store, if you talk to any retailers with physical presence, they will tell you that the foot traffic is down and how do they increase store presence. And yet I don't see enough really being done at a C-suite and a CMO suite to actually start continuously thinking about how do we drive more traffic in store to actually utilize that brand experience. And I think that's the different trade-off that we see between physical and digital.
So Shauna, we are at time. That was, I enjoyed myself, and thank you, Rob and Shauna, for getting the report out. Thank you and thanks everyone for being in the session, Ben, Kristen and Nicola. It's awesome.
Yeah,
that was good.
I echo that. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your perspectives and unpacking the report with us. And thank you to everyone who's joined as well and spent the last hour with us. I was hoping to get to more questions, but clearly there's a lot that everyone has to say on the different topics. So maybe keep an eye out for the webinar part 2 in the future. But as I touched on at the beginning, we will be sending out a PDF copy of the report to everyone who attended and registered for the webinar. So do keep an eye out on your inboxes in the next couple of days. But thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.